This is the technique I use to prepare my cake pan. I cut out a section of parchment paper that's just slightly larger than my cake pan, so I use my cake pan as a guide to know how much to cut. So then I cut off that section with a sharp scissors. Parchment paper is also known as baking paper, if that's what it's called in your country. So again, using my cake pan as a guide, I start to cut a rough circle out of my parchment paper. It doesn't need to be a perfect circle, you just need it to be circular in nature. So here we have our cut section of parchment paper. Next, you want to grease your baking tin with some butter. You want a nice even coating of butter around your pan. Make sure that you grease the sides as well as the bottom of your baking pan. Once you have greased your pan, you want to fit in your parchment paper into your baking tin. I find it easier to fold the parchment paper into quarters and crease it a little bit, and that makes it easier to put it in your baking tin. But you don't have to do this, it's an optional step. So put your circle in the baking tin and just smoothing it and make sure it's nice and nicely stuck to your baking pan. Then add a thin layer of butter to the parchment paper so that your cake doesn't stick down onto the parchment paper. Next, we're going to flour our cake pan using either plain flour or, if it's a chocolate cake, cocoa powder. You want to flour your cake pan, so add a little bit of cocoa powder or flour to your pan and then shake it so that it coats the bottom and sides of your pan. If there's any excess at the end, just shake that off and tip that off. And here we have your cake pan ready to go. My method works every single time and it makes my cakes come out perfectly and beautifully each time.